How would your life be different today if you had never learned to read? For an estimated 32 million people in the United States, this is their reality. The leading cause of illiteracy in our nation is dyslexia. Students have not and are not receiving proper reading intervention today. Dyslexia is a neurological learning difference that affects 1 in 5 people. That's right, 20% of our students have dyslexia. These students are not lazy. They try hard, but they don't see the rewards of their efforts. Dyslexia is not a learning disability. However, if a student is in special education, he may be eligible under specific learning disability. 85% of these struggling readers have dyslexia. That means twice as much money goes to the schools for struggling readers in special ed versus the general classroom. And dyslexic students are in both settings. Dyslexic people have an average to high intelligence. They're creative people, often musical, great in the arts, and have a lot to offer this world. They're good with hands-on projects and working with three-dimensional items. Some have called them twice exceptional. We were not born to read. It is a human invention, and we've only been reading collectively as a society for a little over 100 years. As humans, we were hunters and gatherers. So the reading brain has been evolving in order to keep up with science, phones, texts, emails, etc. Dyslexic people work harder, and this is well known. Sam Orden and Anna Gillingham started working with dyslexic students in the 1930s. We know of some very successful people throughout history that had dyslexia, such as Winston Churchill, Leonardo da Vinci, and Albert Einstein, to name a few. And you may have heard that Walt Disney, Steven Spielberg, and Tom Cruise were dyslexic. As you may ask, what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a language-based learning difference and refers to a cluster of symptoms which results in having difficulties with language skills, particularly reading. They also experience difficulties with writing and pronouncing words. Having dyslexia is very difficult for students to succeed academically in the typical instructional setting. Students with dyslexia often glance and guess at words when they try to read. They memorize words so they can't spell or read unfamiliar words. They don't punctuate their sentences. They often forget periods and capitalization. Since they lack phonemic awareness, they add or omit letters and syllables, or they misplace them. They'll spell calp instead of clap, spot instead of stop. They also have difficulty memorizing the days of the week and the months of the year. The effects of dyslexia are huge. Reading failure leads to low self-esteem and increased poor behavior, which can lead to detentions and to Saturday school. There's an increased chance that these students will drop out of high school, commit crimes, and end up incarcerated. 65.9% of our students don't reach grade level reading by 4th grade, and they rarely catch up. These students are at risk. Statistics show that 2/3 of these students will end up in prison or on welfare. There's a state back east that looks at the literacy rate of 3rd graders to determine how many prisons to build. 66% of prison inmates are dyslexic. Interestingly enough, assembly bills were signed across the nation, and Governor Brown signed our Assembly Bill AB 1369 on October 15th in 2015. In January, Ed Code 56335 became law. It mandated that schools assess for dyslexia and provide intervention by the 2017-2018 school year. So why isn't this happening in our schools today? Reading scores across the nation are lower now in 2019 than they were in 2017. This is a huge problem, but it is solvable. Orton and Gillingham showed us how to use a multisensory approach to reading, which benefits all students, but is necessary to teach dyslexic students to read. This program must be structured, systematic, sequential, and cumulative. Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions uses the Orton-Gillingham model for their reading program called Step-by-Step Reading and uses classical music. Students have made 1 to 3 year gains in only 6 weeks using this combination. Since dyslexia is neurological in origin, doesn't it make sense to benefit from the neuroscience of the relationship music has to learning to read? Dr. Roger Sperry won a Nobel Prize in the 1980s on his split brain theory, which was done in the 1960s. He demonstrated that the left and the right sides of the brain could work independently or together. The majority of teachers are not trained specifically in dyslexia interventions, and schools have limited budgets. Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions trains teachers in just 1 day to use the effective and affordable reading program. And they developed a music app called Dunking Dyslexia. Using the app with your earpods, classical music plays in the left ear, crossing over to the right angular gyrus, while spelling exercises are heard in the right ear, crossing over to the left angular gyrus. This is called enhanced lateralization. It's wonderful. And the corpus callosum, that central part of the brain, doesn't hinder auditory processing. Just think about it. One teacher may work with up to 120 students a day. All the students will benefit from what a teacher learns in a 1-day training. Are you ready to help save lives? Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions is a 501c3 nonprofit organization raising money to reduce our reading crisis by supporting teachers that seek that extra professional training they need to work with dyslexic students. Learn more about how you can partner with Step-by-Step Dyslexia Solutions to close the achievement gap, stop the school-to-prison pipeline, and help students develop success in school and in life. Remember, every child has a right to learn to read.